The state of Oregon ranks third nationally for missing persons, and one person on that list is a man from Eugene who disappeared from a campground in the Umpqua National Forest in August 2020. He was last seen walking away from a party and has never been seen since. The wilderness has been searched extensively, but he's still missing. Welcome to Morbid Outdoors, the podcast that ventures deep into the shadows of the wild. Here, we unravel the mysteries of missing persons, explore spine-chilling legends, and share the most morbid stories that nature has to offer. From the depths of the dense forests to the highest mountain peaks, we'll uncover the secrets that lie hidden in the great outdoors. Join us as we navigate the eerie, the unexplained, and the terrifying. So if you dare, grab your gear and let's embark on a journey into the unknown. This is Morbid Outdoors. Hello, everyone. My name is Elise, and I am your host. I have chosen this case, and it's not a very well-known case, but I've chosen this case because I hiked a lot in this area back in 2021 and 2022 when I lived not too far from this area. And the reason why I chose this case is because when I was heading out to do hiking, I saw his missing persons flyers, like these, they had these like sandwich board signs, and it was a call to action for hunters to be mindful and have an eye, on the lookout for Michael, who we're going to talk about today. So that's why I chose this case. His case still deserves publicity and any exposure it can get, because where he went missing is an extremely small town, and he's still missing, and his family is still searching for him. And his family has taken a huge lead in missing persons in Oregon and around this specific area. So that is why I chose this case. He deserves recognition. His family deserves recognition, and they are still searching for him. But way back in 2021, I saw his missing persons flyers, before I started on my hike. And I think about his case often. So let's start with our negative reviews. Jimmy said, Google took us on an insane road not meant for vehicles, that we were in rocks and trees in the road right off the cliff edge is where it and the trail. I got directions to started complete inaccuracy. Yeah, that was a hard read for me too, and I'm sure that was a hard listen for you. But basically, Jimmy did not make sentences correctly, but he's basically saying that his GPS took him on a road that's not meant for cars, and it was very difficult. Now, my microphone's doing some weird things. So I actually had the same experience in this area, but I didn't leave a negative review about it because it was user error. But yeah, my husband and I were doing a camping trip around Lamolo Lake, and the GPS took us on this very sketchy road, and I didn't know if we were going to be able to make it out or off of the road. So that does happen in this area. However, most of the roads your GPS is going to take you on aren't so bad. Sandy said, go to the mountains to get a tree, they said, ... It'll be fun, ... until you have to call 911. That sounds like a fun haiku or something. She didn't, go into detail about why she had to call 911, but I feel that this entire area is just, I don't know, it can be a little sketchy. And if you've been in this area yourself, it's very, very remote. So let's talk about the Umpqua National Forest. The Umpqua National Forest is in southern Oregon's Cascade Range, and it covers an area of almost 1 million acres in the following counties: Douglas, Lane, and Jackson counties. And this area actually borders Crater Lake National Park in Southern Oregon. And when I lived in Oregon, I lived in Jackson County. So very, very beautiful place in the state of Oregon. This forest is extremely dense and contains western hemlock, true fir, Douglas fir, and lots of ponderosa and groves of oak, and a lot of old growth forests. So very, very green and very, very pretty. Now, in terms of First People, ancestors of the Umpqua, Southern Molalla, Yoncalla, and Cow Creek Band of Umpqua tribes lived in this area. And I've discussed Mount Mazama, which is near Crater Lake, and it's an ancient volcano. And so it is Crater Lake, and it erupted, and that's kind of what made Crater Lake about 7,000 years ago. If you're wondering about the word Umpqua, I hope I'm saying that right. I did live in the region for a while, and a native over there told me it was Umpqua, and I was saying it correctly, but I don't know. So it is spelled Umpqua, and two translations into the English language of the indigenous word means thundering waters and across the waters. So there's a lot of water in this area, and there's rivers, there's lakes, there's streams. It's absolutely beautiful. And if you have not been to this area of the United States, I highly suggest that you go, because it is something else and almost otherworldly. It was established on July 2nd, 1907, under our 26th president, Teddy Roosevelt. And it's home to more than 250 wildlife species. There are large mammals such as deer, elk, black bear, cougars, and then there's the smaller ones like squirrels, foxes, raccoons, and bats. There are a lot of birds and a lot of raptors, owls, eagles, osprey, and even peregrine falcons. And in terms of fish, because there's so much water, there are coho and chinook salmon, as well as steelhead, rainbow, brown, and cutthroat trout. And they feed and spawn in the rivers and streams of this national forest. Because this area is so large, has so much water and hiking trails, there are a lot of recreational activities allowed in this area. Those activities include camping, fishing, hiking, horseback riding, hunting, mountain biking, rock climbing, and boating. In the winters, there are Nordic and downhill skiing, as well as snowshoeing and snowmobiling, and those are actually pretty popular in this area in the winter time. The Umpqua National Forest contains 3 wilderness areas: Boulder Creek, Rogue Umpqua Divide, and Mount Thielsen, and I hope I'm saying that right, because it is Thielsen. I think it's Thielsen. It could be Thielsen. Go with whichever one your heart tells you is correct. Notable features in the area include Takiti Falls, Umpqua Hot Springs, Diamond Lake, Mount Thielsen, Limola Lake, and there are lots of waterfalls and hiking. And I have been to all of these areas, and it is so, so pretty. And I'm really hoping I can head back to this area next summer. According to the National Missing and Unidentified Person System, Oregon ranks 8th in the nation for the number of open missing persons cases and 3rd in the rate of disappearance. Today, we're traveling to a quiet patch of Central Oregon, near a little town called Dorena. It's the kind of place you'd pass through without much thought. It's tucked between rolling green hills, pine trees, and the winding Roe River. It's peaceful and remote, and it's the perfect stop for a weekend camping trip, or maybe the kind of place where someone could disappear without a trace. So, like I said, I've actually visited this area, and I've been hiking. I've been through Dorena, and it's not really like a town. It's just kind of like, I don't know. There aren't a lot of houses. There's not like a lot of infrastructure, but it's kind of a gateway into this area to hike in. There is a covered bridge there, so it is on the Oregon Covered Bridge Trail, which is just something that you can go into which is why we were there. We were there to see the covered bridge and to go hiking. So let's talk about Dorena a little bit. Dorena is an unincorporated community in Lane County, Oregon. It's located southeast of Cottage Grove on the Roe River, and the first settlers arrived in the Dorena area in the 1850s and depended on the agriculture to survive. But later on, logging and gold mining became mainstays of the local economy. The name Dorena comes from combining the first names of Dora Burnett and Lorena Martin. Dorena School was built in 1896, and Dorena Post Office was established in 1899. Now, in 1946, the town was abandoned when the Corps of Engineers began construction of the Dorena Dam on the Roe River for flood control. The Corps relocated approximately 100 homes from the town's former site, and the dam was completed in 1949, and it created the Dorena Reservoir, which flooded the town site. So very much like, we've heard the story millions of times. This happened a lot back then. And so the community was actually moved 5 miles upriver. Dorena is a cute area, but it's definitely a little sketchy. The forest is so thick and dark because of all the foliage and shade that the huge trees and very lush forest offers. And so even, during the day and it's sunny, you're in this very dark forest. Because of the forest, there are a lot of hiking and a few campgrounds nearby. And one of those campgrounds is where 27-year-old Michael Bryson was last seen on August 5th, 2020. Michael was from Eugene, Oregon, and was last seen at Hobo Campground near Dorena in the early morning of Wednesday, August 5th, while he was partying with friends. So the day before, on August 4th, he stopped by his parents' house in Harrisburg and told them that he was riding up with a friend to a week-long birthday party / camping trip at Hobo Camp Campground. Hobo Camp is a small roadside campground located in the Umpqua National Forest. It's described as primitive, which is okay for a night or two, but I think it's very interesting that this event was for a week, because that's a very long time to spend at a primitive campground. So, in this area, there's a path that leads to a larger creek, but it's basically primitive campground kind of off of the roadway. Michael had been asked to DJ a few sets as well as participate in this event, and it's been described as a rave party in the woods with about 40 to 60 people, music, and drinking and drugs. Witnesses say Michael was last seen in a bus on the campsite before he just walked away. So little is known about, what actually happened that night or that early morning. But you've got a lot of people in this primitive campground. You've got no lights, except maybe campfire and whatever artificial lights someone had, like flashlights or lanterns. You've got people drinking and using drugs. Now, I've never done that in the woods before, but it's probably not the safest place to do that, just because of all the dangers that are outside versus if you're doing that in your own house. So no one really knows exactly what happened. Now, Michael's mother said that she was told that he got upset and walked off, and nobody has seen him since. So you have 40 to 60 people. Some say they saw Michael walk off into the woods, but he doesn't come back, and no one alerts authorities. And I'm not sure if that's because there were illicit drugs being used, but in the state of Oregon, marijuana is legal, so I'm assuming it would have had to been other drugs beside weed. Now, Michael's parents weren't alerted to their son's disappearance until 5 p.m. on August 6th, so a whole day later. They immediately drove to the area, and Lane County Sheriff's Office Search and Rescue had already deployed search teams to search by land and in the water. Michael's mom, Tina, said, "By the time we found out, it was almost 12 hours since he had been missing. The moment I put my foot out of the car, I knew Michael was gone. People weren't looking for Michael. They were sitting around, drinking, eating, and laughing. Nobody was out searching for him, so I felt in my gut something had happened. And I can't imagine as a parent how that would feel to get word that your son was missing and to show up. You're heightened, you're at a heightened state, you're probably panicking, and you're hoping that other people are looking for him, and you show up and no one really seems to care. I can't imagine how heartbreaking that was for Tina and her husband, Michael's dad, Parrish. Michael's dad said, "There's been a lot of conflicting stories from the beginning. One story is that he walked away from camp. The other story is that a group of individuals picked him up on the road." After Michael was reported missing, hundreds of volunteers showed up to search miles of the wilderness in the area. Search and rescue teams on foot, on horseback, they all combined and they combed the area. There were drones being used that were looking in the air, and the steep terrain with overgrowth and dense trees was searched for 19 days straight. But there was no trace of Michael. It was like he vanished into thin air. The Lane County Sheriff's Office has coordinated over 15 separate searches spanning 2 counties, and they've had volunteer and paid searchers who've logged over 700 hours. But there's been no sign of Michael. According to Detective Richard Smith with the Lane County Sheriff's Office, Michael wandered away in an unknown direction and left his camping gear behind. His phone was powered off, and he hadn't accessed his bank account since he went missing. Detective Smith said that this case was an ongoing, active investigation. And I'm reporting on stuff that I was finding in 2020, but it's still it's still active and being investigated today, almost 5 years later. Michael's dad said that they never got a straight answer from the partygoers about Michael, and he believes that they know more than they are saying. Quote, "The stories given by some of the people at the party are inconsistent, and most of the people left the day Michael went missing and continued to hold raves and parties," end quote. He added that while there were many people still left at the campgrounds, a few friends and several strangers dedicated their time and energy to searching for him. So Michael's parents stayed at the campground for 19 days looking for their son, and they expressed gratitude for everyone who also stayed and helped search for Michael. Michael's parents said that Michael was just getting his life back together after a drug problem. So before COVID-19 kind of started, Michael had been working at a bar and grill, and he told his parents he was interested in studying to become an electrician. But for years, his passion was music, and he was often invited to DJ sets at parties and raves across the state. So, basically his parents are concerned, and they're not surprised. It wasn't out of the ordinary for Michael to be at a rave DJing a set or, doing music for a party. He did have a past with drug use, and he had gotten his life back from that. His parents said that he was turning his life around and he wanted to go back to school. And so for this to happen, it was completely devastating for his parents. Michael's parents, Tina and Parrish, said that Michael would never just leave. Even in his toughest times, he would always contact them. So the idea that he would just walk off and disappear is unheard of in Michael's life. This is something that he would never, ever do. Parrish Bryson said, quote, "He did not just disappear into thin air." So, a couple months later, there was a breakthrough. On December 11th, 2020, Parrish Bryson got a call from someone who saw something on Bryce Creek Road, which is about a mile west of Hobo Camp between Cedar Creek and Lund Park campgrounds. Parrish notified the Lane County Sheriff's Office and Search and Rescue, and when they arrived, they found some items of Michael's, and it was stuff that Michael was last seen wearing. Now, these items were found in an area that had already been searched several times, These items were found near a swimming hole and visible from the road. The assumption is that these items were planted there because this area was already searched multiple times. With the new clues found, teams did search in this area after these clothes were discovered, but there were no more clues found during these searches. Back in 2021, Parrish Bryson said that at least 3 times per week, he was out following tips from community members, which sometimes meant driving into the woods in the middle of the night only to find animal bones, a deer carcass, or an area that he had already investigated. He says he can't even begin to tell anyone how many bones he's gone out and checked. Now, Bryson's parents are convinced that someone murdered their son, though police have found no evidence of that so far. Tina Bryson also told the register guard that she doesn't believe he walked away. Like I said, this wasn't very Michael, and he would have never done that, and his parents know that. Sergeant Thomas Michael Speldrick said, quote, "We're certainly open to the possibility that there was criminal action, and we haven't had anything that led us one way or the other at this point." Michael's parents have since started the Michael Bryson Foundation, and it's mainly to bring awareness for missing people and also for mental health and drug addiction. And they actually host a 5K shuffle on August 5th every year now. And they've had 118 participants cross the finish line in honor of Michael and others who have gone missing. So, an update from September 2023. Human remains were found, and these were found in September. It was just a skull, and it was entered into the Oregon State Labs October 1st of 2023. And it basically was sitting on a shelf ever since. Those remains could possibly belong to one of 3 cases in the area, obviously, because just one skull was found. But according to Parrish Bryson, the skull fragments will be tested out of state at a lab in Virginia and will take an additional several weeks to get the results back. Parrish does not believe that the skull fragments are his son, and they were discovered in the Blue River area. Parrish did say that he and several other families with missing loved ones worked together to get the fragments tested for DNA. Yes, I did say that there were 2 other missing persons in this area. And what's interesting about this is that all of these people went missing from around the same area. This large area takes up most of eastern Lane County and ranges from Vida to Blue River to Dorena, which is all mostly rural. It's a large area that Parrish Bryson believes gets away with small pockets of criminal activity due to lack of patrols. This area has been called a hot spot, and basically there's no law enforcement there. I mean, it's there, but not by a lot, right? These are very small areas within the Umpqua National Forest, and there's been a lot of people go missing there. And there's not a lot of law enforcement, especially where Michael went missing in 2020. The skull in question could possibly belong to Shane Springer. Shane went missing on November 3rd, 2021, while he was mushroom hunting. That's a very common thing for people to do in Oregon in this area. Shane's arm was found in 2022, 23. I couldn't find exact dates, but the rest of his body remains missing. So it's possible that this skull is Shane's skull. They're going to do DNA testing on it, and I guess we're going to have to wait to see who it belongs to, but there's no cause of death noted. This area is pretty creepy. I wish it had a name. I hate that I have to call it this area, but it's, I don't know, it just is kind of creepy. So there are, other people missing in this area. One of those is Chase Robertson and Eric Brazil. Their cars were recovered in nearby areas, but they have not been found either. There was a dead body found in August 2023, And this person's name was McKenna Riley. Her death was ruled a drowning, but her family disputes this. A private investigator says police ignored signs she was in danger shortly before she went missing. So it's like this might be the perfect place, I say that with sarcasm, to get rid of someone. And that's awful. And I think all of these missing persons in this specific area, that warrants, we need more law enforcement out there, because there's something happening, multiple things happening in this area. People keep going missing or winding up dead under mysterious circumstances. And it's just going to keep happening. So I don't know a good solution, but something has to change. As of 2024, an organization called Dylan's Legacy, they were hoping to breathe new life into the search for Michael. And they brought in canine search dogs and searchers to 2 targeted areas of interest where they believe Michael's remains might be located. So this team, it's like a huge team, and involves canine teams from Utah, Colorado, and Washington. They also were going to keep looking for the remains of Shane Springer, like the rest of him. And it happened in November 2024. I've never heard of Dylan's Legacy, but it offers compassion and help to families of missing people, often when there is no help to be found, no other help. And according to the Dylan's Legacy website, Dylan's Legacy strives to make a meaningful difference in the lives of others facing the uncertainty of a missing family member. Establishing Dylan's Legacy is our way of honoring Dylan's memory and ensuring that other families facing similar circumstances receive the assistance and compassion they deserve. Dylan's Legacy is named after 19-year-old Dylan Rounds. He went missing while out working on his farm in rural Utah in May of 2022. His body was found in April of 2024, and there has been an arrest in his case. And the 60-year-old felon named James Brenner did plead guilty to Dylan's murder. But for 2 years, all they found were his boots, and they didn't know where Dylan was. It was a very, very bizarre case. Then, before the search could happen, the canine search teams from Dylan's Legacy, in the early hours of November 3rd, 2024, graffiti appeared on the exterior wall of the Lane County Jail in Eugene, Oregon. And it was bizarre, and it really did reignite public interest in the case of missing Michael Bryson. There was a message, and it was scrawled in yellow chalk, and it read, "Blaze Powers knows what happened to Micah," and there's a missing L, "Bryson." Very interesting. And then it had 2 names, Kasaya and Kalea. So take that with what you will. The L on Michael's name was oddly missing, so it's unsure. Obviously, they are mentioning Michael Bryson, but for some reason, they forgot the L on that message. Investigators assume that the graffiti was left the night before on November 2nd, was hey, I know what happened to Michael Bryson. And there hasn't been much answers in terms of the graffiti. So obviously, this kind of shocked everyone. And basically, it named a suspect. It's not the first time Michael's name has resurfaced in unexpected ways, as supporters have posted flyers, shared social media campaigns, and even conducted independent search efforts in hopes of finding him or finding new information on his case. But I couldn't find an update about the graffiti, whether or not they found out who did it, and if they've investigated this person, Blaze Powers. I have no idea. The most recent update in Michael's case came on April 9th, 2025, and it has to do with that skull. Parrish Bryson said it would take an additional 8 to 10 weeks for the results to come back, and they had to send that, those skull fragments to a lab in Virginia. So Parrish and Tina do not believe that these skull fragments belong to Michael, but it will help because they belong to someone and someone's family is still looking for them. So if you ask me, I think it's likely it's Shane Springer since they have found parts of his body in years previous. It'll be 5 years in a few months. Rumors swirl about people at the campsite, about drugs, about what may have happened in those dark woods after midnight. Some believe Michael walked away on his own. Others, they think someone made sure he didn't walk out. So what happened that night at Hobo Campground? What did Michael see? Or what did someone not want him to see? Michael is 6 feet tall and weighs approximately 180 pounds. He has short brown hair and hazel eyes. He was last seen wearing a white t-shirt, tan shorts, and white Crocs with rainbows. He also might have been wearing a brown corduroy baseball cap. He has several tattoos on both legs, ribs, and arms. If you have any information on the disappearance of Michael Bryson, you are asked to call the Lane County Sheriff's Office at 541-682-4150, then press 1 and reference case number 20-5286. There is a $10,000 reward gathered by his family, and it's being offered for information that leads to Michael. Reward is subject to location of Michael and those involved in his disappearance. Michael's NamUs reference number is MP72954. As always, recreate responsibly, and remember, sometimes the great outdoors aren't always great. Thanks for listening to Morbid Outdoors. If you're enjoying what you're hearing, make sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform. It's free, easy, and it helps us out immensely. When you subscribe, you get updates on our latest episodes, and it also boosts our visibility, making it easier for other curious souls to find us. Another great way to support Morbid Outdoors is by leaving us a review. Whether you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen, a quick review helps us know what you love about the show. Find us on Instagram and Facebook at Morbid Outdoors Podcast. You can email us case suggestions and your campfire stories at morbidoutdoorspodcast@gmail.com. Thanks so much for the support, and I'll see you next time.